Hallo, agus fáilte go trí seascad den program Spòrs Alba a bhí sa cuideachd na luath an usil Spòrs na ban. Is me Iona Ballantyne agus mí toilte ra go bhfuil tosgaire Spòrs Alba agus Spòrs Ciorram na h-Alba Grace Stirling choiridh san stiúidio. Program na heiche noch, cluinnidh sin min ruúd an taringach sa bheil Grace an sas gus barach fór an is clannéan a h-Alba go Spòrs. Ha Jodie Sloss a taia úlst a bruidhinn airtas a ha isio ghenú an a rèis-motair agus ha Katherine Fraser a cuideachd slíal i h-Alba seo. Grace, welcome to 360.
Hi there, thanks for having me.
Well, it's lovely to have you on the show because you are somebody that just does so much for sport and disability sport in Scotland. It's really amazing to hear. Can you just tell us, first of all, how your love of sport began?
It first began after the 2014 Commonwealth Games. I saw a para swimmer, Erin Davis, win a medal there, and she was only a couple of years older than me, and before that I didn't know about disability sport. I had taken part in like PE and lots of different sports maybe growing up, but nothing like that seriously, and I probably didn't realise how much I enjoyed sport, although I am very competitive and I always knew that. So I took up swimming after the Commonwealth Games and competed for a number of years, and that's really where my love of sport began.
And that's the thing, the Commonwealth Games is so inclusive. There's no kind of labelling people off, and even in different locations or different times of the year, it's all under one banner. Was that quite a special moment for you too, seeing that and being there in Glasgow and knowing actually I can take part in anything too? Yeah,
definitely, because there's not very many occasions where sport covers all abilities and Paralympic and Olympic sports come together, so the Commonwealth Games is a special occasion where that does happen, and it's just great to see people being included and seeing role models of people with disabilities who are like yourself, so then you get involved, you want to get involved after seeing it.
And that's the thing, I mean, we'll talk about in this programme, we talk about it all throughout every show, just how important role models are, and that's a prime example of why we need role models and what it can do, because you were inspired by somebody at that time, and it was also swimming. That's kind of what you took up after seeing the Commonwealth Games, wasn't it?
Yeah, swimming was always a sport because of my disability, which is called arthrogryposis. Swimming was always a good sport for me, and it was encouraged by the doctors and that because it wasn't weight bearing. So the fact it was a swimmer that I saw on TV that really encouraged me. It was, yeah, it's definitely the main reason that I got involved in swimming competitively was the Commonwealth Games.
And tell us about swimming competitively. Where did it take you? What did you do? How long did you do it for?
I swam competitively from the age of 12 to 16, which I really enjoyed. It was more, I just decided I didn't want to compete, but I swam for Scotland within like the British competitions, and I was part of the Scottish National Junior Para Swimming Squad. And it was great because I was actually getting to meet people with disabilities, which I hadn't previously. So no, I loved the competition, and it was just a great sport to be part of while I enjoyed it.
That's brilliant. Again, it just shows the power of sport, how it can bring so many people together and people that you might not have otherwise have met. What then kind of happened after swimming? Because you don't swim currently at the moment, do you? No, I don't swim currently. So then COVID hit, and I sort of just took a break from sport because obviously no sport was happening anywhere. And it was in October 2020, I applied for the Young Start programme with Scottish Disability Sport, which is a coaching apprenticeship programme, and I wanted to earn my swimming teaching qualification. So I joined that programme, and it was all done over Zoom, but it started to open up lots of different opportunities, and they support you to become a coach. They provide lots of different workshops, they'll provide funding to help you get there, and you just get the support that you maybe wouldn't get otherwise, and they just want to increase the number of coaches with a disability because there's really not enough out there. Are you enjoying that?
Yeah, so I graduated from that programme in 2021, but it allowed me to continue being a peer mentor for the programme and supporting the next group that came along, and then it gave me the opportunity to go in and do some tutoring with SDS as well, and I did lots of different workshops and stuff with them as well, and I earned a sports educator like qualification, which allows you to go out and coach and deliver workshops to lots of different people.
That is amazing. You do so much for sport and disability sport. We'll go into all of that too. You are also at uni, studying sport. How are you enjoying that? Yeah, no, uni's good. I really enjoy the course and the content that's in the people are all really nice. But yeah, I definitely involve like the volunteering more than uni itself. But no, I'm learning there, and
uni's worth it in the end. I'm really actually enjoying the degree. It gets you places, but obviously I do enjoy the volunteering more, so no, it's good though.
How are you balancing all of that, because there's a lot going on?
I'm learning, that's what I'd say. I've started to learn to say no when I need to. I'm very much a person that always says just say yes, but obviously when it comes to balancing things, you can only say yes to so much. So no, I'm definitely learning. As I move to my 3rd year next year, I need to learn.
3rd and 4th year might be a bit different because you'll know what works too.
Yeah.
But tell us also recently about your trip to London and what was involved in that.
So I'm part of the Fit for Girls programme with Spòrs Scotland, and I'm a tutor for that. So the Fit for Girls programme is about empowering young girls to realise they have a voice and they can use it, and it allows them to make change within their local community and school. So many teenage girls drop out of sport, and I was one of them. And you perhaps don't realise at that age just how many different opportunities are out there, and you don't need to participate necessarily to be part of sport. Volunteering is such an important part of sport as well. So for the Fit for Girls tutors, we go into lots of different schools and deliver these workshops. But we were invited down to London to the Parliament to speak to some MPs for International Women's Day. So it was an all-parliamentary party event, and it allowed us to share what we're doing up here in Scotland, which often isn't heard down in England. So we wanted to share what we're doing, why it's important for women and girls in sport to be talked about, and why young people should be part of the decision making at all levels. And we just wanted to show how important what's happening at the ground is just as important as what's happening at the top. So it was a very good opportunity, and not one that we expected to get. So no, there was a group of us that got to go down and just experience that and see the Parliament and get to meet some important people. That is amazing. Are you quite happy with how that went and actually what you can kind of look at in the future now too? Yeah, we didn't know what to expect going down there. It was such a last minute thing. It only happened within a week. So we didn't know what to expect, and we were very happy with how it went and what came about it. And it was just great to be in a room where people generally were listening, and it was with MPs as well as CEOs of top sporting organisations. There was so many people. I think there was almost 100 people in the room. So while as intimidating as it was worth it in the end. We really enjoyed it, and we were glad we'd made the trip down. Oh, Grace, that is fantastic. You are just someone who is doing so much for sport and disability sport too. It's wonderful to hear. We will be coming back to all of this shortly. Wel, bheith becan is bliana nach corm mar son Jodie Sloss and a rèis-motair tro arpis formula an ban. Vonur sin hair gal vo suya an car san the head uur gevig amis rèis limon. Her sin graham Jodie see a can tay son becan lion and an tay an ulch.
Son a bhór chuiste dràibhear an Spòrs motor, háisich an dríochgacha cuasa cartún nuair a bheith glé ág. Can you sin a chuise son Albanach Jodie Sloss?
So I've got quite a unique story in motorsports for sure, and it's I would like to say it's a long one, but it's really not. It happened within a year of me going from not knowing I was ever going to be in a race car to being in a race car. So there was one day I was literally sat in my house in Scotland and I seen an advert for a prize to win a full season in the GT Cup driving a McLaren 570S, and it was from a company called Formula Women, and it was such an amazing opportunity, and I was like, well, might as well go to the assessment day and see what I can do. And I've always been into cars, always had my old BMWs, always been kind of like a car girl in some forms, but I think motorsports was always off my radar in the fact of there wasn't many female representation in it. There wasn't many role models, apart from, of course, the one we know as Susie Wolff. So I went to my assessment day. I was tested on track, mentally, media, karting, everything you can think of within the car and with outside the car as well. And in December, I was finalised as one of the finalists for the competition.
Ba Jodie dal suas and I cushion a driver in born oga shad. I is gaburin ye kritchen nur huani machen duri ache hier skipper.
So in the morning of Sweden, when we done the final shootouts, we actually were on an ice lake in Sweden having a shootout, which was really cool. And that was where my raw talent could actually be shown, with my car control, my throttle feel, everything really. So it was that morning in Sweden that he literally looked at me and he was like, Jodie, you're going to be one of the 4 main drivers of the GT Cup team. And I was just like, what? I was like, really? And honestly, I just burst into tears, and honestly, that is when my life changed.
Had Jodie a critching go bhfuil na buighin cearsteiche a bhí sarfachal an Spòrs Motor. Ach chai gadjachuk an féimiú union darfi dhéanamh na bhith gus de bhruidir a lentain.
So there's a lot of sacrifices in racing for sure, and one thing was for me when I won the competition and I was the least experienced, and this is something literally coming into it with no prior experience, no karting, nothing. And I just had so much belief in myself, and I think I just loved it. I felt so at home in that race car, and I could just see my ambitions, and I wanted to go all in. I was like, with an opportunity like this, I want to go all in, I want to be dedicated. So I actually gave up my self-employed business that was semi-successful to be full-time racing driver and just go for my ambition to be at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. I don't know, it's just me as a person. I'm very calm, I've got a good head on my shoulders, and every single situation, if I'm being pressured to literally sit in a McLaren, go on a grid with pro drivers and be like, right, race some. This is your first race, Jodie, in a McLaren 570S. It's something that I dealt with very well, and I don't know if that's just because it's so natural to me and that is just my purpose and that's where I should be. But yeah, I agree that I went through that competition very level-headed, and I just was so chilled out. I was so calm, and I think sometimes the best drivers in the world are the ones that are really calm.
Ha aan barach vornig eichkin an Spòrs Motor. Ayes had Jodie sonne na parst an sin. Gus an nagenjelach jo loch reis vrosnachug.
I think that's one thing I take with my career is I want to be a role model for people just like me a year ago looking into motorsports, and I think something that I found so mind-blowing was 1.5% of all racing licenses were only female, and that's pretty much all over the world. It's still such a sport that diversity is creeping into it, and I hope that my story inspires a lot of young girls and older girls to just give it a go, see if they have the raw talent, because I would have never ever knew I could have done this or would have been so good at racing or in a car unless I took that step to actually try it. Right now there is stuff that's being done. There's some really good organisations that are coming just out of the ground now to help women, and that's such a good thing to see. And even like Formula Women, that kind of concept, it's just nice for women with no experience, maybe no money behind them as well, to be brought up to the top and to just be given that opportunity, just like I did, to sit in a race car, show my natural talent, my natural ability, and grow from that. So yeah, I do believe there should be more eyes on us, and I believe we should be given the opportunities, but it's happening, the change is happening for sure.
Ha Jodie vi gopur collery Parliament na h-Alba, gus Jeffrey Johin bornichis cluinnidh a horsin sas and grievachus Spòrs Motor.
Yeah, so they've been really supportive, and I think as well with the role model sense, they do quite a lot for women in motorsports, or women in any sport really, is the Scottish talent, and that's what we thrive for in this country. So they invited me to come along to have a meeting with Marie Todd, the sports minister, and we just really talked about my journey and really introduced that and see things that we can maybe do, or maybe more I can get involved with as well, in the same aspect of being a role model to younger people that this is an option. So yeah, definitely got Scottish support. I love it. I honestly do love it, because I get girls all the time that message me saying, how did you start in racing? I didn't know this was an option. You've literally come from a little town, Oban, in Scotland, in the Highlands of Scotland, and you're now potentially racing in Europe next year. And people can't get their heads around it sometimes, but honestly, I'm proud of what I'm doing, and I want to bring the legacy and the message with me. And it's almost like this generation already is starting to change. You're starting to see difference. I mean, I have little girls that come up to me and say they want to be engineers and work with race cars, and that's when you're starting to see, okay, they're being brought up, they're being born into this generation where it's okay that that option is there for them.
Ham focus in nish son Jodie einerash an blad race. I is a lorach schlia a verisi faravellier son a goal and an Spòrs Motor.
So my main goals, I think, right now is obviously getting to the next step with everything, getting commercial backing as well, and hopefully going to Europe this season is the main thing, and meeting new teams, meeting new connections, widening my opportunities and getting my name out there, not only for me but for Scotland as well. But my overall goal is always going to be the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and that's something that's always been on my brain. That's the race I want to race in, and hopefully the next 3-4 years time I'll get that opportunity to be there.
Grace, what a brilliant story of how Jodie got involved in motorsport in the first place. Again, it just shows it's all about taking those opportunities, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It only takes one person to step out their comfort zone and take an opportunity for them to open so many doors within sport, not just for themselves, but to create such a pathway for everyone else in the world as well. So you can see by Jodie doing that, and she's a role model and definitely is a trailblazer for what she's doing for her sport, and it will be inspiring so many other people.
Totally, and it just goes back to what we were talking about at the start of the programme about role models and how important they are in sport, and we can see that with Jodie too. Again, it just kind of cements why we need people out there doing these things.
Yeah, definitely, and there'll be so many girls out there that'll see themselves within Jodie, so the fact that she's out there trying a sport which don't have many women in it, it's great to see, and she will definitely be inspiring so many young girls, and I'm sure we'll see so many Scottish girls coming up the sport soon.
Oh, brilliant. And also, I mean, you were obviously down in London at the Parliament like we were talking about. How great was it to hear that Jodie's been dealing with the Scottish Parliament and really kind of pushing for motorsport for girls and women too?
Yeah, it's so important for us to be speaking with those in power and those that are making decisions, because at the end of the day they should be listening to us, young people that are involved in everything within sport and trying new things and all the different opportunities, because we're eventually going to be the ones, the next generation, we're going to be the ones in power eventually as well. So it is important that they do speak to young people because their decisions affect everyone. So no, definitely it's great to hear that she has been speaking to the Scottish Parliament.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It'll be really exciting to see kind of the rest of Jodie's career and where she can go with that. I mean, for you personally, like we were talking about at the start, you do so much with Scottish disability sport and Sport Scotland. Tell us a bit more about Scottish disability sport and the kind of the talks that you give too, because I know you do a lot of kind of educating people.
So Scottish Disability Sport is like the governing body for disability sport within Scotland. They work with all the other governing bodies to provide opportunities within sport, but it's just good we have a centralised point that focuses on disability sport and improving the opportunities out there and awareness that's there. So I'm a tutor with Scottish Disability Sport, and I help deliver the UK Disability Inclusion Training, which is a workshop that we go out to lots of different people. It could be schools, unis, like people working in sport, and it's all about educating people about disability inclusion and improving the awareness about how inclusive practice can be used within sport. I'm also a tutor for a workshop called Disability Identity in Sport, which was a workshop created by me and some of my friends within Scottish Disability Sport for young people. So we always said it was a workshop created by young people for young people in partnership with SAMH and SDS. We wanted to try and help raise awareness between the link between living with a disability and having mental health problems, but also to help promote self-acceptance within living with a disability. It can be quite hard to accept having a disability, and we wanted to be there to support others and use our story to try and encourage others to see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there's so many positives to having a disability, and there's so many different opportunities out there. So yeah, a lot of what SDS do, they do so much, but a lot is about the education and trying to break down the barriers, like improve the stereotypes and really show that what really like change the vision of disability within Scotland. And I love being part of that because I think you can, it just takes so much like talking and stuff, and by speaking to others you can make a difference and you can change somebody's opinion, and we just need to slowly start changing opinions, and then eventually hopefully one day Scotland will be a more inclusive place.
You're such a fantastic ambassador, Grace, because you do so much and you're so passionate about it, and it's really great to hear what you do. Even if we just go back to what you're talking about when you go in and give talks about disability inclusion, what are the main factors that you try to get across to these schools and organisations to help people with a disability get involved in sport?
I think our main point we always say is just ask questions, just speak to the individual, because every individual with a disability is different, but they're also the expert of what they need and the requirements they might, additional support they might need. So just ask. We always say don't be afraid, just ask the question, speak to them, because at the end of the day they're a person, so you would speak to any other person to find out about them. So we always say just ask the questions and you will learn so much, and you'll be able to then create a more positive and inclusive environment. We also say don't be afraid about saying the wrong thing. There's such a fear about saying the wrong thing when it comes to talking about disability. And as long as you're not intentionally doing it, it's okay. We'll educate you, we'll be able to help you, learn and understand what the right terminology to use, because it's such a wide variety and it changes all the time. It's like any terminology within the language, it's changing all the time. So no, one thing we say is just don't be afraid, don't treat them any different, and you generally can like change things to become inclusive. Just if you're doing sport, speak to Scottish Disability Sport. There's members of staff all across the country that work with different organisations in the local areas to make sure that things are inclusive, and they're always there. They're only a phone call or email away if somebody out there is needing help, or if they're wanting to take part in sport, they're there. So that is the main point, is that we just want to try and educate people. So just ask questions, because you should be willing to learn. So that's the best way you can improve your practice.
That will help so many people, and it will change the lives of so many people too. And the thing is, inclusivity is so important. I mean, we were talking about wheelchair tennis and how it was something that you were taking part in not that long ago, but now it's difficult to take part because there isn't a wheelchair just available for you to be able to use. And that again just comes down to even just a wheelchair being available. Yeah, disability sport equipment is very expensive, and there is funding out there, but sometimes the funding isn't necessarily worth it if you can't find the opportunity to train, and that was sort of where the barrier for me came in. There wasn't anywhere too much in the local area where I could go and train or take part. So yeah, you do have to balance up whether it's worth getting all the funding for the equipment, but that's all improving slowly over time as well, and there is so much equipment out there. But yeah, it is a barrier to people with disabilities taking part in sport, is the equipment out there. What would you say is the main thing that kind of all organisations need to look at and work on just now? I think maybe just the people within their organisation and the attitudes of the people, because at the end of the day, at a sports session, it'll be the people that make or break the session, and it's coaches and volunteers. If they go through the disability inclusion training, it could change their perspective, and some people are stuck in their old ways, but we want to try and change that, and by being willing to learn and see what they can change, it does make a difference, because they're the ones that are creating a session for somebody with a disability, and if perhaps if it's a negative experience, they might never go back to sport. Whereas if we want to ensure that there's as many positive experiences so that more people with a disability take part, and yeah, so really the best part of it is the people. So we do need to make sure all the people out there are trying their best to make a difference and create a positive, inclusive environment. Well, Grace, you are making so much positive change. It is really wonderful to hear. Well, in Talmanish, Cloinjane vo cricketer Katherine Fraser had a h-Alba for ish care blina jig. Be she captain a skipper for ish nay blina jig, a cluich a cuiridh na criogaid and in Africa a jess and blina. Vroin Shiniri Katherine wintly eichke an a cricket, agus mar a ha and teolishin a cuiridh na criogaid, a dol chuideachd cricket na h-Alba.
Hóisí go cricket Katherine Fraser amach as dra gemile a parentin. Nur a hóisí go club a cricket, burin ye bruidhinn bhucha go skip a náisianta a hóisce brú.
So it was always mainly cricket in the back garden, playing with my parents, but I also played rugby and a bit of badminton. I probably would have been about 4 or 5, so my mum's always loved cricket. She's the one who got me into it, so just sitting watching cricket, the Ashes and whatever, and then playing in the back garden with my parents, as I said. That's where it really began, and then into club cricket when I was about 9 or 10. I suppose I always dreamed of it. I really wanted to play international cricket, but it probably wasn't until I was about 12 or so that I thought, oh, I could play international cricket here. So yeah, that's where I really got into it, got really passionate about the sport.
Chluich Katherine was an Alban thoiseach nur a bhaid céir blina diag. Agus ha feikin go persanta mar a han tuver lesach go hadn blianachin.
Yeah, I was really excited. I hadn't really been expecting it. I thought I'd been part of the training squad for about 3 months or so. So I'd sort of thought I was just there on potential, and I'd hopefully get into the squad for the next couple of years, but then getting that news was really exciting. I just felt really proud. This group's always been brilliant for that. You know, you've got Abby Aitken-Drummond, who's got 160 odd caps now. You've got Katherine Bryce as captain, who's snagged over 100 caps. So it's always just been so good to learn from them, people who are so passionate about the sport as well. Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, I don't remember being nervous, but I know I must have been absolutely terrified. I think the whole day was just a bit of a blur. I didn't actually bowl particularly well. I wasn't too pleased with my performance, but I was just absolutely thrilled to have been in an international cricket field. I think like so many facets of our game have developed. I think the one that's been most obvious has been our batting and power hitting ability, and then just from a tactical perspective as well, we've moved forward a long way there.
Ba Katherine mar fáiste tuamh háirithe na h-Alba fó h-Alba ag lé corm chluich cúpa na criogaid in Africa Jace. Aois h-Alba go raibh scipe riamh misneachil beag an yacht bhí criogaid.
It was just an amazing day. It was an amazing week or so that we had in the Netherlands. Just an incredibly special week, breaking records, making history, and just being able to play alongside a great group of girls. I think when we scored 200 in the final game, Ailsa Lister and Darcy Carter just hitting sixes for fun, that was pretty incredible to watch. But I think as well the way the team gelled together as a group, which stood us in really good stead going to the World Cup. I think we definitely backed ourselves to get to the World Cup. I think for me it was an extra special moment because I'd tried to qualify for a World Cup before with the senior team and I hadn't quite got there. So to have had that experience with the under-19s was really special. I think it slowly kicked in, and then obviously with training preparation and just sort of thinking about the time to come, and then sort of getting on the plane, and then all the experience and atmosphere in South Africa was just amazing. And then when we were there, it really felt like we were part of something special.
Ba scipe fó h-Alba farpa cúpa na criogaid san uileach le Katherine na captain, get nach dúirí amach as an buineachcha, dúin na cluichteidir in chluich aoigh tóir van arpis.
It was amazing, just the whole atmosphere around the tournament, the energy, the buzz, the knowledge that we were part of something so special was amazing. Getting to challenge ourselves against some of the best players in the world, you know, you've got Shafali Verma playing for India, etc. So it was just amazing, and I'm really proud of what the girls did. Yeah, I mean, it was an absolute honour to captain Scotland at the World Cup. It was quite stressful at times, playing against some quality oppositions, but I definitely learned a lot, both about leadership and my own game, which will stand me in good stead going forward. We were disappointed not to get out of the group. That had been the goal that we'd set ourselves, so to lose that first game against UAE, it was always going to be difficult to beat South Africa and India because they are, you know, higher ranked teams. I think we put up a good fight against those teams. So yeah, we were disappointed not to get out of the group, but I think we showed glimpses of what's to come from Scottish cricket in the future. Having had that challenge against those sorts of oppositions and been a part of that sort of atmosphere at a tournament like that, I think that experience will stand us in really good stead. So when younger players now move up into the senior team, they'll have a wealth of experience to draw on.
Ag 7 blwyddyn ha Katherine mar ha a bhí sarfachol leis an scipe náisianta. Aois ha ar a dóid glan leis a thulaeolalas a heice leis an scipe.
It's happened a lot faster than I initially expected. I got into an under-16 regional team when I was about 10 or so, and then everything happened very, very quickly from then. I just sort of one day found myself in a senior training squad, and then a couple of weeks later I was off to a qualifier. So it all happened really quickly, but everyone around me has been so supportive. I mean, I think there's still a long way for me to go. There's a lot of things I still want to accomplish. I'm only 17, so I've got a long way to go in that perspective, but I think it's just been an absolute honour so far. Getting to experience cultures, so for example being in South Africa, being in Malaysia. Unfortunately a lot of it's been during COVID since my career started, so we've spent time in hotel quarantine, which wasn't a lot of fun. But it's just been amazing to experience all these different places.
Ha dríach ata háasta Katherine ní céad ar dris san Spòrs. Aois leis na leisichin cúnamhalach an criogaid na h-Alba, ha ar bheirinar san an tamrí teach.
this year is probably qualifying for the World Cup qualifier, the next one to come. So winning the European qualifier in order to do that. I'd like to just continue to help this team grow, develop, hopefully push some younger ones into the team and just keep sharing my knowledge. We've got a fairly small pool of players in Scotland at the moment, so if we can develop them at grassroots level and then up into sort of the pathway, these pathway players will push the senior players to get to continue to improve and get better. I think starting from the bottom, that's how we'll get stronger as a country. I think qualifying for the World Cup is every one in this team's goal. That's the big one and has been for several years now. I think for me, one of the ones I want to achieve is 100 caps for Scotland. That's a goal I've set myself, and then just hopefully qualify for Commonwealth Games. I've been part of a qualifier for that, so hopefully some point in the future we'll see that. I think, you know, you've got so many star players coming through, you know, Ailsa Lister, Liv Bell, Orla Montgomery, Emma Walsingham, just to name a few. You know, I think the future is definitely in safe hands.
Grace, Katherine's story just shows the opportunities that are available through sport. How great was that to see just what she's achieved so far, and she's still so young.
I know, she's so young, she's got such a bright future ahead, and it's been great to see the different opportunities she's had and the places she's got to go. It's so incredible to see what journey she's had so far.
And it's amazing that, again, another sport can just bring people like Katherine together and like you say, travel the world, and she's doing so much, again, at such a young age. And like we've spoken about in the past 2 chats on the programme, another role model, another trailblazer for so many young girls coming through.
Yeah, definitely. And she's got such a bright future because cricket seems to be growing, and she's definitely going to create a good pathway for all the different girls coming up in the future, and she's definitely a role model. You don't need to be old and famous to be a role model. You can be as young as that, and yeah, no, she's definitely a role model for the girls in Scotland. And
she's got so much ambition too. It just does kind of feel like the start as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And that ambition and determination is the reason why she'll be where she's going and what she's done so far. So no, it's great to see it in someone so young.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, the thing is that the other side of Cricket Scotland, there's a lot going on in the organisation right now. I mean, an independent report has found the organisation to be institutionally racist, with members from the Equality and Anti-Racism Working Group resigning over what they see as a lack of progress in tackling racism. It is disappointing to hear because it kind of ties into what we were speaking about before in terms of inclusivity. Inclusivity covers race, gender, disability. I mean, how important is it that organisations know this and work with that?
I think at the end of the day, everyone has the right to take part in sport, and everyone should be able to, no matter who they are, what their ability is, and that is something that definitely needs to improve and change over the coming years, because at the end of the day, sport can open so many doors, it gives so many opportunities, and everybody deserves to be able to access that.
Exactly, and you know that firsthand, even with your work through Fit for Girls and everything that you do. You give so many people so many opportunities. What is coming up next, and what do you kind of want to achieve going ahead?
My main passion and drive is just to make sport more inclusive and be able to make a difference to those around me, or just sport in Scotland in general. I feel like I've had so many different opportunities, so I want to be able to give back and just make sport a brilliant place for everyone, and I just want to be able to do that because you have no idea where it'll take you. The future can take you anywhere, so no, sport's a great place for the future. It
totally is. And tell us very briefly, what do you have coming up next? What are you working on?
I'm just part of the Sports Scotland Young Person Sports panel recently, so that's for the next 2 years, so there'll be so many grateful opportunities coming up for that. But yeah, I just want to continue doing what I'm doing. I enjoy volunteering. I just want to keep making that difference to those around me.
You are making such a difference, Grace. Honestly, you are doing an incredible amount of work, and it will change and is changing the lives of so many people, honestly. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this week, and I hope we will speak to you soon and see what else is coming up.
Thank you.
Well, sinna son in noch in a chiachgain be clicked there at their national rugby na h-Alba agus coach tennis had their Lockhart call room in stiùidio. Granur sin jan keen teach go bhil lengthen BBC Alba ekels gun calshif program 3 sheskid some B. Agus cuiridh go bhil dagem SWPL akingu bio BBC Alba Jodie sa tíin le Celtic a chluich Partick Thistle agus Rangers a dul in Hibs. Hí sin sibh an áthúras.